Hey guys, Jack, welcome back. And with the midweek fixtures coming up, the big match we're going to be talking about in this video is going to be between two managers that are under pressure. We have Mauricio Pochettino welcoming Erik ten Hag to the Stamford Bridge, and the result of this game could really change the outlook for the fans, the players, the coaches, and also the owners. Let's jump into it. First up, we're going to be talking about Chelsea, and Mauricio Pochettino has had a very difficult time at the club, and there's been two main reasons for that. It has been the huge injuries that they've had and the young squad. First up with the injuries, they've had so many injuries, and it's been the same case throughout the Premier League. I'm not taking that aside, but like when you have so many of your kind of a lot of the players that you expect them, if you name their first 11, that they play them every day, every week. A lot of them are injured, the likes of Reece James, maybe Fofana, Colwill, and even Christopher Nkunku. Like they have so many of those kind of players, and even the substitutes that they would have are injured as well. Like it's just not been good for them, and I think obviously when you're young and you're still developing, you're going to have those minor nicks, and unfortunately that has seen a lot of players miss a lot of minutes. And then if you talk about, probably for me the main reason is the young age of the side. I think they're one of the youngest, if it wasn't for Thiago Silva and Raheem Sterling, Silva in particular, just shooting up the average age. The rest of the side is very young, and when you lack a lot of those leaders and a lot of players who've played 100, 200, 300 games, you're not going to have that kind of experience to kind of handle the situations like we saw against Burnley. They had, they took the lead on, through Cole Palmer, and even when they took the lead again, they just kind of seemed to struggle to kind of handle the mindset. And because Company in that sense, or Craig Bellamy when he was the assistant manager, was able to, call on the more experienced players like Josh Cullen, Darragh O'Shea, who were able to, Josh Brownhill, who were able to, cultivate a kind of a bit of leadership within them to help get their side a draw despite being down to 10 men. Chelsea don't have that, and I think it's been so obvious to see. Pochettino has had a very difficult time trying to bed in a lot of these players, and because they're so young, you're not going to have consistent performers. Obviously, Cole Palmer has been an exception here. He's been incredible scoring. I think he's had 20 plus goal contributions for Chelsea this season, and while he has been incredible, that's just one out of many players. Mudryk has had not decent patches here or there. Nicholas Jackson, Gusto, Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, Gallagher. Like a lot of these players are, very good, very talented players. But when you're going through a difficult patch, especially with Chelsea, who have been difficult, have had struggles, in front of goal, particularly converting the chances, and in defence where a lot of rotation has been occurring, you're not going to have this consistent flow to the game, consistent mojo. And that has been evident in all their performances, where similar to Everton, if you look at this, just at their XG and stuff, yes, they're managed to be able to get into a lot of a lot of positions to take a lot of chances, but they just haven't done that. And even if you look at Cole Palmer against Burnley, like he was good. Don't get me wrong, but it was kind of more of an off day for him, just given, I think given the chances that he was given. But unfortunately, they've just been struggling to put things away. And then when we look at the defense, obviously the constant road of different players playing in the back four or back five has seen them struggle. And even like Petrovic, who made a huge mistake, like even the goalkeepers have rotated because obviously Robert Sanchez was injured. And I just think that lack of consistency has really affected them, and like that's all both down with personnel and just the players themselves. And I think for Pochettino, I just think the criticism just been surrounding him has been really negative and just undeserved, in my opinion. I think after the League Cup final, where they were unable to beat Liverpool and their very young side, a lot of fans just turned on him immediately. And I think they need to give him the time, because if Pochettino manages to keep him, let's say, in 10th or not, they don't get European football, what good is it to change the whole thing again? Because that hasn't worked the last two seasons. He needs to have been given time and maybe just make one or two additions, a few more experienced heads, and move on a couple of players, but not these wholesale changes, because that hasn't worked under this ownership so far. So I think it's important that he is given the time to kind of figure things out. And if you've seen over the last year, if they haven't been, or last kind of in 2024, that they've been better, they've played a bit better, but obviously it isn't good enough yet. And I think they need to stem the tide and just rebuild over the summer. I'm not saying completely change the system, just give him the time to take a breather and go into next season. And if I understand if he performs badly next season, yeah, I'll consider his job or stuff, but I don't think they should be doing that now. And then we look at Erik ten Hag, and he's under a lot of pressure as well. Obviously, INEOS have a controlling stake in the company, and they can make a decision about his job even now or even at the end of the season. So there's a lot of pressure building around him. And I think a lot of fans are feeling the pressure and they're putting the pressure on him because after their performance against Brentford, there's still a lack of understanding about what is Ten Hag's motive, what's his game style, what's his philosophy. And while we saw a bit of that last season, I think the injuries again have really affected him and maybe not getting the players that he wanted. And obviously PSR has played a role in that, but that has also been down to his doing. And he pushed for Anthony, who was apparently, according to reports from The Athletic, was about a 35 to 40 million pound player, but they ended up paying about 80 to 85. And I'm not putting him down as not him as the core reason, but when you have such a big outlay, you're like that to ask questions about about the recruitment system, and I think that's being resolved now. But when we look at present day, they have not looked good tactically. They look a bit all over the place, particularly in defence, where they concede about 25 shots a game, and Onana, in fairness, has done really well in the last few months, kind of come leaps and bounds since the start at Old Trafford. But they're still conceding so many chances, and while the quality of the chances is so low, you're still conceding 25 chances. And even if, let's say, I think the average that they had is lower in the league, so I think it's 0.12 xG per 90, of shot quality. They are like that. Just says 1 in 10 shots will end up in the back of the net, and that's not a good thing. Like, they need to figure out a way to kind of be a bit more compact and just be more defensively resolute and just get their bodies in front of the ball. And even in attack, they've been a bit better than the likes of Chelsea. And I think that's just been down to the likes of Bruno Fernandes playing through the likes of Garnacho, who has been a revelation for them. Despite being so young, he's been really good down on the right-hand side. Rashford's been coming into a bit of form, and Rasmus Højlund also is coming to a bit of form. But they are still struggling to create chances. And I think with Kobbie Mainoo, who has really done well coming into it, they shouldn't be relying on him to be like the kind of star, the saviour of their side. Like Casemiro, who is 31 and a Champions League winner, I think 5-time Champions League winner. They shouldn't be relying on an 18-year-old academy player. And while he is immensely talented, they should be looking towards Casemiro, Rashford, Onana. They have a lot of these top players. And then when we look at their injury list as well, they've also suffered a lot. Lisandro Martinez, Luke Shaw, Malacia, Wan-Bissaka for a bit, and then we now have Lindelof and Varane, who could be missing this week. It's such a mess with both teams in terms of their injury records, and I think that's going to play a crucial role in this game. When we tie it back to this game, I think Chelsea are going to have a very difficult time here. Obviously, both teams are suffering with huge injury lists, but I think Chelsea, just given the constant rotation of players, they are going to find it very difficult. And with Garnacho, Rashford, and Højlund, who are going to be putting pressure on them, I think they're going to struggle. I think they're going to need to rely on potentially Thiago Silva to come in and just show a bit of experience and just help the back line, because Benoit Badiashile looked very ropey in this game, and I think he's still coming back from injury, and that's going to happen. And even Axel Disasi, who will probably have to be shifted out to right back to cover Gusto, and obviously Reece James being out. And then when we look at United, they're also suffering with defenders missing. I said earlier that Lindelof and Varane are going to be out for this game, but Maguire has shown to be very capable, and he's had a bit of a revelation this season, and I'm really pleased for him, just that, considering that he was almost like basically pushed out of the club, but he refused to go to West Ham, and he's been paid dividends for making that decision. But United are still missing Luke Shaw, so that's a huge attacking outlet. So I think they're going to be hoping that Wan-Bissaka can play the full 90 in that side, and then Diogo Dalot on the right hand side can create a lot. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens there. I think it's going to be a case of, I think Chelsea are going to be pushing a lot and try to create chances, but I think Man United are going to have a lot going forward, and I think they're just going to have enough in this game. So despite a huge rant, I'm going to go with a Man United win away at Stamford Bridge. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win. Tabletoppers Liverpool are going to be facing Sheffield United on Thursday alongside United and Chelsea, and I think it's just going to be a comprehensive win for Liverpool. Despite Sheffield United having a couple of really good performances, especially Brent Barton-Diaz and Ollie McBurney up top, they're still being very porous in defence. I mean, they lost a lead against Fulham, and of course, Rodrigo Muniz scissor kick. It was unbelievable. And I think just with Salah back, despite him misfiring against Brighton, I think he's just going to be up for just kind of rectifying those misses. And I think it's going to be an easy 3-1 win to Liverpool. This is arguably the second biggest game of the weekend between City and Villa. Like Villa had a big win against Wolves, and despite Aït-Nouri just I think he was just thought he was offside. I think they came out with a good 2-0 win, but I think there's going to be a very difficult task. Obviously, City are going to have a few players back, like the Stones, potentially Walker, and I say Erling Haaland will be wanting to get almost like kind of retribution for what happened against Arsenal. It wasn't his day. And I think it's a good time against Villa because they're still missing John McGinn, and he was crucial in the reverse fixture that saw Villa win. And at the Etihad, I think it's going to be a very difficult tie for them. They're still missing a lot of players. Ollie Watkins went off with a hamstring injury, and whether that means he will be out for this game, because if he is, I think that's going to be huge. John Duran is a good player, but he can be a bit erratic, and I don't think Unai Emery is the biggest fan of that. But I do think I wouldn't be surprised if Villa do get a result from this. But just given the circumstances and the injury list that Villa are suffering with, I'm going to go with a City 3-1 win. After a huge defensive display against Man City, Arsenal will be welcoming Luton to the Emirates, and they're going to be wanting to get a win here and just keep up the title race, same as City and same as Liverpool. This could be the potential stumbling block for Arsenal, but I think what they have going on for them is that their record at home has been really good. And I think now with Martinelli potentially coming back and Saka getting a few more minutes under his belt, they could do something in this game. And I think if they get a few early goals, they will be able to shut up shop. And we saw what they did against against City. But I think they just need to be very focused in this game and just not kind of panic and stress, because that's what happened last season, and they dropped points where they shouldn't have, likes against Southampton and West Ham. I think they have shown really good mentality, especially in that City game. And I just think that despite Luton's ability to create chances, I think they're just not going to have enough in this game. I'm going to go with a 3-1 win to Arsenal. Losing Anthony Gordon in the last match against West Ham to suspension is not ideal, and the fact they've lost Lascelles now alongside Botman in the back line has meant that they are very thin in that spot. Even though Dan Burn and Fabian Schär have been fit, Schär looks like he's been struggling with something, and Dan Burn has obviously dealt with a broken back over the last few months. And I think it's going to be a bit too much. Everton have a pretty much fully strength side, and while they haven't finished their chances, they've definitely deserved to win a few of these matches. And I think this could be the time they end their 12-match winless run. I just feel like it'll be set pieces, and despite Newcastle just having huge fight in their last match, I think that was the first time they've come back in a match like that, and with so many injuries in their defence. And just a lot, and just even though Harvey Barnes came into this and he will start over, Anthony Gordon, they're still missing Trippier, Miggy Almiron, Miley. I just think there's so many absentees, especially crucial ones, that I think Everton are going to come out of this with a 2-1 win. Fulham staged a good comeback against Sheffield United, and I think they were just caught out surprise. So I think in this match they're going to be really on their toes, and I think Nottingham Forest are going to struggle here, despite Matt Sells having a really good performance against Crystal Palace. They struggled to keep out chances, and they probably should have lost that on the balance of things. And I think that Fulham's attack is much better than Palace's at the moment, especially with the injuries that Palace have had. We've seen the front four of Willian, Iwobi, Munoz and Pradella. They have just been really fluid and going forward, and Harry Wilson when he's fit. They have a lot of attacking, now, and even though Nottingham Forest have had a few players return, the likes of Gibbs White and Alanga from injury, and they have talented obviously with Hudson-Odoi, I think the fact that they're still missing Awoniyi is just really huge. And I just think that they've conceded so many chances, and I think Fulham are just going to have too much for them. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win to them. Despite a little blip, Bournemouth have seemed to come back into form again, and they're coming up against Crystal Palace side, who have picked up a bit of form themselves under Glasner. I do think it's going to be a difficult tie for them. I think they will be a lot more defensively resolute. Bournemouth will struggle to break them down, but I think the likes of Solanke, Semenyo, Kluivert, and in recent weeks, Tavernier, who has kind of gone under the radar in terms of just how his runs have really dragged defenders out. And obviously with Palace still missing a few of their key players, particularly Mark Gahey, I think they're just not going to have enough in this game. I'm going to go with a Bournemouth 1-0 win. Burnley have shown that they have a bit of fight left in them, and that's a huge credit to Company, who has really seems to have galvanised the side. And I think the crucial move there was bringing back Muric into the starting lineup. James Trafford has had a difficult season. It's because he's so young and he hasn't really kind of built into the Premier League yet. It was such a huge step for him going from League One straight into the Premier League. And I think just having the presence and the size and just kind of the understanding of the system with Muric, who has been with them since their their championship season, and you can see why he was preferred in the last few weeks. He knows how to play, and as a result, their results have picked up. But they're going to be missing company for this game, and I think they're going to have a difficult time against Gary O'Neill's side, who have, despite looks like Cunha could be set to return, they are going to be missing Neto and a few other key players. I think it's, I know after the performance against Villa, I say they're going to have a bit of they're going to be a bit down in that regard. I think this could be a bit of a dire game in terms of just the action within it. So I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw. West Ham had a very difficult second half against Newcastle, and the fans were not pleased with the situation. Obviously, they have not been happy with the way David Moyes has played, and just with Calvin Phillips, who has had a difficult relationship with the West Ham fans so far. And I completely understand why. Like, if you saw the clip of him basically gesturing to the West Ham fan after the match when he was jumping on the bus, it's not great, and it's just kind of I don't see what good that was from the fan, because you need to back your side. But going back to this game against Spurs, I just don't think they're going to have enough going forward. I think Antonio just looked a bit jaded towards the end, before he came off, and just given this contrast in the games where obviously West Ham blew a lead while Spurs came back from the lead, and they look a bit more. They're starting to pick up a bit more momentum, and as the game wore on, they did that. And so it's going to be for Postecoglou, it's going to be a huge conundrum. Will he go with Kulusevski from the start, or will Brennan Johnson get a run? Because once he came on the pitch, he just tore it up, and he was so pivotal to them coming back and winning that game 2-1. And I think it's going to be a similar scoreline here. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win to Spurs. Last up we have is Brentford and Brighton, and I don't know what to expect from this game, because I could see Brentford scoring a few set pieces from this game, but they're dealing with a lot of injuries, while Brighton have kind of a full cast to choose from. And against Liverpool, they were very poor defensively, but they definitely had their chances at times. And I think with Brentford, they could have a bit of fun here. It's very difficult to kind of tell with this game, and I don't know too much, to be honest. So I'm just going to go with a Desmond 2-2 draw. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care.